He called security at 8:32 a.m. By 8:57, I'd already moved the IP to my new LLC. My name is Aaron Whitfield, and at 8:32 a.m. on a Wednesday morning in Seattle, I watched Nicholas Lawson reach for his desk phone. I knew exactly who he was calling. Security would arrive in 4 minutes, maybe 5 if they stopped for coffee first. It didn't matter. By 8:57, the automated transfer protocol I'd coded 3 weeks ago would complete its final sequence, and the blockchain timestamps would be irreversible. The conference room smelled like stale coffee and corporate desperation. Nicholas sat across from me, flanked by Linda from HR and a lawyer I'd never seen before. The setup was textbook, 3 against 1, morning light streaming through the windows behind them, forcing me to squint. "Aaron, we need to discuss some irregularities," Nicholas began, sliding a folder across the table. I didn't touch it. My hands rested calmly on my lap, years of poker nights with my college roommates finally paying off. Inside, I was counting seconds. The deactivation of my credentials would trigger everything. "What kind of irregularities?" I asked, letting confusion creep into my voice. "Unauthorized system access, downloading proprietary code to personal devices, working on projects outside your scope." Each accusation was technically accurate. Each one was also exactly what I'd needed them to notice. "I don't understand," I said. "Everything I've accessed is within my role as lead systems architect." Nicholas's smile was thin and rehearsed. "Your role at Core Stream Technologies is being terminated, effective immediately." The words hung in the air like they were supposed to devastate me. Linda pushed the folder closer. The lawyer clicked her pen, ready to take notes on my reaction. "You have 15 minutes to collect personal items," Linda added. "Your credentials have been deactivated." There it was, the trigger. If you're new here, please subscribe so you don't miss more inspiring stories. Share your thoughts about today's story in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. My phone, sitting face down on the table, vibrated once. A single notification I'd never see. But I knew what it meant. In an AWS server farm in Virginia, a Python script had just detected my authentication failure. The cascade had begun. "This seems excessive," I said, my voice deliberately shaky. "After 4 years of building your infrastructure?" "The board believes new direction is necessary," Nicholas replied. "Ethan has shown remarkable initiative in optimizing your original systems." Ethan. My former intern who couldn't debug a simple loop until I'd spent 40 hours teaching him. The same Ethan is now listed as principal architect on the investor presentations. I stood slowly, letting them see my hands tremble. Through the glass walls, I spotted the security guards approaching. James and Eddie, good guys who brought donuts to the team every Friday. "Can I at least understand why?" I asked. Nicholas actually looked sympathetic. Probably practiced it in the mirror. "The company is evolving. Sometimes evolution means difficult decisions." James knocked softly on the door. I checked my watch, 8:36 a.m. In Virginia, the first patent applications were being submitted to the USPTO. In Delaware, ownership transfer documents were being filed with the Secretary of State. In 21 minutes, everything would be complete. "Let's go, Aaron," James said gently, touching my elbow. I nodded, gathering the dignity of a man who thought his world was ending. They had no idea I was counting down to when theirs would begin to unravel. 6 months earlier, I should have noticed when my commit messages started disappearing from the repository. Small edits at first, a renamed contributor here, a revised attribution there. I'd push critical bug fixes at midnight, only to find morning stand-ups crediting team collaboration instead of my name. But I was deep in the architecture of StreamCore, our real-time data processing engine. The elegance of handling 3 million transactions per second had consumed me completely. I ignored the politics and assumed competence would speak for itself. That was my mistake. I'd built StreamCore from nothing. 2 years ago, sitting in a cramped studio apartment in Capitol Hill, surviving on energy drinks and takeout Thai food, I'd cracked the fundamental problem of distributed state management. The breakthrough came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, scribbled on the back of a pizza receipt. I documented everything obsessively, a habit from my PhD days. Every coding session is recorded, every algorithm iteration is time-stamped, Every architectural decision was logged in personal notebooks. My thesis advisor used to say, "Science is only real if it's reproducible." I'd taken that to heart. The erosion accelerated when Nicholas arrived in February. Our founder, who'd recruited me personally, had been pushed out by the board. Nicholas came from private equity, the type who viewed code as fungible assets rather than crafted solutions. His first all-hands meeting featured buzzwords like synergistic optimization and leveraging human capital streams. I should have started planning my exit then. Instead, I watched my name vanish like morning fog. The investor deck that once featured my photo now showed Ethan demonstrating his revolutionary approach to distributed consensus. Patent applications I had drafted listed me third, then fifth, then not at all. My access to strategic planning sessions was revoked. Senior leadership needed to focus, apparently. Senior leadership meant Nicholas's business school classmates and Ethan, freshly promoted after 8 months at the company. "You're being paranoid," my brother told me over beers one evening. "Companies reorganize constantly." But I'd started keeping evidence, screenshots of documentation before and after edits, emails forwarded to my personal account. Most crucially, I'd noticed something Nicholas's lawyers had missed. My original contract from 4 years ago had never been updated. It still contained the IP assignment language from when I was a consultant. All intellectual property developed using company resources during assigned work hours belongs to Core Stream Technologies. The key phrases are using company resources and during assigned work hours. 70% of StreamCore's foundation was built in my apartment on my personal equipment before Core Stream even officially existed. My development logs proved it. The GitHub commits from my personal account proved it. Even my electricity bills proved it, showing massive usage spikes during those all-night coding marathons. That's when I found Rebecca Lancaster. She specialized in intellectual property disputes, particularly systematic erasure of engineer contributions. Over coffee that stretched into 4 hours, I showed her everything. "Classic playbook," she said, scrolling through the altered commit histories. "Diminish the creator, elevate a puppet, eliminate the threat. But they made a critical error." The contract? The contract, yes, but also the pattern itself. Every alteration, every modified document, it's evidence of deliberate fraud. They're not just stealing your work, they're documenting the theft. We spent March building an airtight case. I incorporated Archstone Solutions LLC, named for Archimedes and his lever. Rebecca drafted patent applications distinguishing between company time work and my personal innovations. But the elegant move was simpler. As lead systems architect, I still controlled documentation protocols, so I created a comprehensive technical manual for StreamCore v4.0, 227 pages of sleep-inducing technical specifications. The kind of document executives sign because their engineers assure them it's routine. Buried in Section 7.2, subsection C, paragraph 4, was a single sentence. Core Distributed Consensus algorithms developed by Aaron Whitfield between October 2019 and March 2020 on personal equipment remain the intellectual property of the developer, licensed to Core Stream Technologies under terms subject to renegotiation upon v4.0 commercial deployment. I submitted it on a Friday afternoon with 18 other routine documents. Nicholas signed them all in under 12 minutes, probably thinking about his tea time. By April, the signs were unmistakable. My admin privileges evaporated one by one. My emails were flagged for compliance monitoring. The final insult, an invitation to Ethan's presentation about his vision for StreamCore's future, with me listed as an optional attendee. I knew termination was imminent. The only question was timing. So I prepared my failsafe, a monitoring script on my personal AWS instance, checking my Core Stream credentials every 30 seconds. When it detected deactivation, it would execute a cascade of legal, devastating actions. I didn't build backdoors. I didn't need to. I simply ensured that when my credentials died, the systems would recognize that external source licenses had expired. Everything would keep running. I wasn't cruel, but any attempt to modify or deploy would fail with a simple message. License verification failed. Contact Archstone Solutions LLC for terms. The beauty was in timing. They were 2 weeks from their Series D closing, 10 days from a major deployment for a Fortune 50 client, and 6 days from Ethan's board presentation, where he'd claim credit for innovations he couldn't explain. The failsafe triggered at exactly 8:35 a.m. Pacific time. As James escorted me through the lobby, my phone vibrated twice in my pocket. I didn't need to look. The sequence had initiated. First wave, 43 patent applications filed simultaneously with the USPTO. Each one documenting algorithms developed in my apartment during those sleepless nights. The system generated confirmation emails, timestamp, certificates, and priority date assignments, all before I reached the parking garage. Second wave, automated emails to my carefully curated list, former CoreStream engineers who'd left for competitors, industry journalists who'd covered our technology, angel investors who'd backed me personally before CoreStream existed. But the poetry happened inside CoreStream's infrastructure. At 8:38 a.m., their continuous integration pipeline attempted its morning build cycle. Build failed. Error, license verification failed for module streamcore.consensus docs engine. At 8:39 a.m., the DevOps team would be panicking. Their staging environment for the client demo wouldn't deploy. Same error, different component. By 8:40 a.m., they'd realize it wasn't a bug. Every module I'd marked as integrated under license in the technical documentation, the same documentation Nicholas had signed, was failing verification. Production systems still ran, but they were frozen in amber. No updates, no modifications, no new features. I sat in a coffee shop across from the office, ordering an Americano with deliberate calm. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see CoreStream's offices, tiny figures moving faster than usual, emergency meetings forming like storm cells. My phone buzzed. Rebecca. USPTO confirmations received. Priority dates secured. Congratulations. You're now the documented inventor of 43 fundamental distributed systems protocols. Another buzz. An automated notification that Archstone Solutions' website was live. I opened my laptop and checked the site. Clean, professional, understated. A landing page listing available technologies for license. No mention of CoreStream. No accusations. Just a catalog of innovations seeking partners who understood their value. The licensing terms were posted, standard rates for most companies, a special tier for startups, and a premium enterprise rate with one line that would make Nicholas's lawyers choke. Companies with prior claims to these technologies, 30% of gross revenue from affected products. At 9:07 a.m., my phone rang. Nicholas, I let it go to voicemail. At 9:09 a.m., he called again. At 9:12 a.m., a text, Aaron, we need to talk. This is a misunderstanding. At 9:15 a.m., another call from Linda. I sipped my Americano and checked email. 23 new messages in 8 minutes. The angel investors were responding. Former colleagues at Amazon had CC'd their legal teams. Very interested in licensing discussions. When can we schedule a call? At 9:22 a.m., Nicholas appeared in the coffee shop doorway. His venture capital polish had cracked like cheap paint. He found my table immediately. Aaron, he sat without invitation. What have you done? Filed some patents, started a company, typical post-termination activities. This is sabotage, is it? I haven't touched CoreStream systems. I simply ended the license for my personal technology, the license you acknowledged in writing on June 7th. His face cycled through several shades of red. That document, Section 7.2, subsection C, paragraph 4. Would you like me to pull up your signature? You deceived us. I documented reality. You signed it. If you didn't read it, that's not my problem. His phone erupted with notifications. He glanced down, and I watched understanding bloom across his features. The client demo, the board presentation, the Series D investors who thought they were backing a company with proprietary technology. What do you want? He finally asked. Nothing. I have what I want. My work properly attributed, my company properly founded, my future properly in my control. The 30% is extortion. It's fair compensation. Those algorithms are worth more than your Series D valuation, but feel free to rebuild from scratch. Ethan's brilliant, right? I'm sure he can replicate 4 years of distributed systems research before your investors walk." Nicholas's phone rang. The caller ID showed a name that made him close his eyes: Andrew Sterling, the lead Series D investor. "I should take this," he said quietly. "Of course." "Oh, and Nicholas," I slid a printed page across the table. "My consulting rates, in case CoreStream needs help understanding the technology you've been using. Standard rate, $3,000 per hour." He took the paper with numb fingers and walked outside to answer his call. Through the window, I watched him pace, gesticulating wildly. At 9:45 a.m., a tech journalist published her article. CoreStream architect launches rival firm, claims ownership of core technology. By 10 a.m., my inbox had 97 new messages: investors, competitors, clients, acquisition offers, and partnership proposals. One message from Ethan. Subject line: "Please help." I archived them all except one, from James, the founder who'd originally hired me before the board pushed him out. "Aaron, just saw the news." Nicholas called me panicking. I told him, "I clearly remember you building the prototypes on your personal equipment. Funny how karma works. If you need a board advisor for Archstone, I'm available." At 10:30 a.m., I closed my laptop and walked out into the Seattle morning. Behind me, through the coffee shop window, CoreStream's offices were in full crisis mode. Conference rooms packed, executives running between floors. They'd survive, probably. They'd negotiate a license, pay the revenue share, and learn an expensive lesson about reading documents before signing. Or they'd try rebuilding from scratch and discover exactly how difficult it is to replicate 4 years of innovation in 4 weeks. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. My phone buzzed one final time. The automated script's last message: "All systems executed successfully. Welcome to Archstone Solutions, founder and CEO." It had taken exactly 25 minutes to reclaim my life's work. Not bad for a morning's effort. The settlement call came at 11:34 a.m. Nicholas again. This time I answered. "Aaron," his voice had lost all executive confidence, "we need to resolve this." "We did resolve it at 8:32 this morning when you terminated me. The entire StreamCore infrastructure is locked. We can't deploy updates. The client demo is in 4 days. "That sounds like a CoreStream problem." Silence stretched between us like a canyon. "What will it take?" I sent my licensing terms: 30% of gross revenue from StreamCore implementations, non-negotiable. That's insane. Our investors will never." "Nicholas," I interrupted, "do you understand what's insane? Stealing 4 years of someone's work and then acting surprised when they take it back? Your investors backed a company built on technology you don't own. That's not my fault. We'll sue. Please do. I have signed documentation acknowledging my ownership. You have Ethan. Good luck explaining distributed consensus algorithms to a jury." His breathing was audible through the phone. "The board wants to meet. Today, 2 p.m. "I'm busy at 2. I have a call with AWS about integration partnerships. Aaron, please." The desperation finally broke through. "We'll lose everything." "No, Nicholas. You'll lose the illusion that you owned everything. There's a difference." Another pause. "Can you meet at 4? I checked my calendar, which was rapidly filling. "I can give you 30 minutes at 4:30. My office." "Your office?" "Archstone Solutions. I'll send the address." The line went dead. At 2 p.m., while Nicholas was presumably getting destroyed by his board, I was on a video call with an AWS partnership manager. They wanted to integrate my consensus protocols into their distributed database offerings. The licensing terms they proposed were quadruple what I'd charged CoreStream. "We've been following StreamCore's development," the lead engineer said, "but we could never reverse engineer the core algorithms. Now we understand why. They were never documented in CoreStream's public patents." "Funny how that works," I replied. By 3:45 p.m., I'd signed 3 letters of intent and had a term sheet from a venture fund specializing in infrastructure technology. They valued Archstone at $80 million based solely on the patent filings. Not bad for a company that was 7 hours old. I'd rented a modest office space months ago under Archstone's name. Nothing fancy, just a suite and a shared workspace with a view of Puget Sound. But it was mine. Nicholas arrived at 4:27 p.m., accompanied by Linda and their lead counsel, a woman named Amanda Foster. They looked like they'd aged a decade in 8 hours. "Gentlemen, Linda, Amanda," I gestured to chairs across from my desk. "Welcome to Archstone Solutions." Amanda spoke first, her legal training evident. "We've reviewed the documentation. The June 7th signature appears to be binding." "Appears to be?" I smiled. "Amanda, your firm drafted the document format I used. This shouldn't surprise you." Linda finally made eye contact. "The entire development team is in chaos. Half are threatening to quit. Any of them are welcome to apply here. I'll need good engineers who understand the technology." Nicholas's face darkened. "You're trying to poach our people. I'm offering employment to engineers who want to work on technology I created. If they prefer staying at CoreStream to work on whatever Ethan builds next, that's their choice." The room fell silent. Outside, the afternoon sun sparkled on the water. Finally, Nicholas asked the question I'd been waiting for. "If we agree to your terms, can you guarantee the technology will work?" "It's been working for 4 years. The only thing that changed is who you're paying for it." Amanda studied the licensing agreement I'd prepared. "This is actually quite reasonable, aside from the percentage. I'm not trying to be unreasonable. I'm trying to be fairly compensated." "We need board approval," Nicholas said quietly. "Can you give us 24 hours? "You have until market open tomorrow. After that, I'll be entertaining other offers. Several major tech companies have already expressed interest." They stood to leave, defeated. At the door, Linda turned back. "For what it's worth, Aaron, I'm sorry. I should have pushed back." "You should have," I agreed. "But you didn't, and here we are." After they left, I sat watching the sunset paint the water gold and crimson. My phone had 214 unread messages. Journalists, investors, engineers, competitors. Everyone wanted to understand how one terminated employee had brought a unicorn startup to its knees in less than a day. The answer was simple. I hadn't brought them to their knees. I'd simply reclaimed what was mine. They'd knelt on their own. At 6 p.m., Rebecca arrived with champagne. "To Archstone Solutions," she toasted, "and to the most elegant corporate justice I've ever witnessed." "It wasn't about justice," I said, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. "Even better, justice that pays dividends." My phone buzzed. An email from Nicholas. "The board has called an emergency meeting. We'll have an answer by morning." I filed it away and turned back to my laptop. 5 more partnership inquiries had arrived while we'd been talking. Tomorrow would bring either CoreStream's capitulation or their attempt to survive without the foundation they'd built everything on. Either way, I had a company to build, my company, with my name on the door and my algorithms at its core. They'd tried to erase me from the story. Instead, I'd written myself a new beginning. The acceptance email arrived at 7:52 a.m. "We accept your terms. Legal will send final documents within the hour." I didn't reply. Instead, I reviewed Archstone's numbers. In just 23 hours, we'd secured $47 million in partnerships, fast-tracked patent applications, and multiple exclusive license bids. CoreStream's final agreement landed at 9:15 a.m., 30% gross revenue from StreamCore, retroactive to my termination, with clear attribution to Archstone in all docs and presentations. Rebecca spotted the catch. They added a non-disparagement clause. "Remove it," I said. "They don't get to silence me after trying to erase me. If they refuse, let them explain to their Series D investors why the client demo failed." By 10:30 a.m., the clause was gone. I signed with the same pen I'd used to incorporate Archstone. At 11 a.m., CoreStream systems came back online. The crisis was over, but the revenue share would linger as a permanent reminder of what they'd tried to steal. By noon, the tech press had turned the story into Silicon Valley legend. At 2 p.m., I held my first CEO meeting. 7 ex-CoreStream engineers sat around the table. "We're not here to destroy CoreStream," I told them. "We're here to build something better, where creators own what they build." One asked about Ethan. "He made his choice. He can live with it." By 5 p.m., we'd approved our first roadmap, next-gen distributed systems built on principles of attribution, integrity, and scale. At 6 p.m., I returned to the coffee shop, same table, different world. Through the window, CoreStream employees streamed out, some subdued, others animated. The company would survive. Barely. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Aaron, it's Ethan." I almost hung up. "I'm sorry," he said. "They told me I'd earned the credit. I was stupid enough to believe them." "Yes, you were. Is there any chance?" "No. You stood by while they erased me. You claimed work you couldn't explain. Live with that." I blocked the number. As the sun set behind the Olympics, I reflected. 6 months of planning, 25 minutes of execution, and 4 years of work finally honored. They'd called security at 8:32 a.m. to escort me out. By 8:57, I'd reclaimed everything that mattered. The barista brought an Americano, the house. For the guy who stood up to the suits and won, I raised my cup in silent toast. To every engineer, minimized. Every creator has been stolen from. Every innovator was told their ideas were worth less than the slides that sold them. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something better from the ashes of their arrogance. As I packed up, I took one last look at CoreStream's offices. Somewhere inside, Nicholas was probably explaining to investors how he'd signed away 30% without reading the fine print. Me? I had a company to build, innovations to protect, and a future to create. They tried to write me out of the story. Instead, I wrote an ending they'll never forget. Thank you for listening. If this resonated, drop a comment. Where are you tuning in from? And if you've ever fought to protect your work, you're not alone. Subscribe, share, and let's keep the conversation going.